You're watching Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
Welcome back. Out of the three Republicans running for a chance to challenge Governor Pritzker next year, only one of them has not held elected office. He's a businessman who is right now raising more money than his two competitors at a faster rate. Gary Rabine joins us now from his home office in Bull Valley. Gary, good to have you with us.
Hey, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it, Mark.
A lot of people in Illinois politics may not yet know the name Gary Rabine. Give us a bit of an introduction as you start to build out your campaign. Who is Gary Rabine and why run for governor?
Hey, Mark, you know what? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm kind of a crazy entrepreneur. I've started 30 companies the last 20 years. It took me 20 years to figure out my first company. And then when I understood duplication and building leadership to take on challenges of more business building, I became a strong entrepreneur and a strong business builder, and really a strong builder of leaders. So for me, I look at leadership in any capacity is about first understanding what you do know, and then finding the best minds in the country or the world in the things you don't know. And so I feel like there's a deficit of that today in our leadership in Illinois, and actually in many leadership roles that I see, not just in politics but business, when people really believe they're done learning, they know it all. And I think that they're a deficit to the customers they serve when they have that mentality. And I think that that's where we're at today in Illinois.
Very interesting. I think one of the first events when you jumped in, the world of politics can be pretty blunt, pretty direct. It was back in March when a reporter just asked you if you believed the 2020 election was stolen due to fraud. At the time, you said, quote, "I'm not smart enough to understand what the end result, whether it was stolen or not, and I would never say that." That was months after the election. In the days since, some of former President Trump's biggest supporters, like his appointed Attorney General Bill Barr, calling those fraud claims BS. Bob Dole, a U.S. Senator, presidential candidate, also a big supporter of President Trump, said, quote, "Rudy Giuliani never had one bit of fraud in all those lawsuits he filed and statements he made." Would you like to update your answer?
You know what? Hey, by being a person that is very transparent, sometimes I get myself in trouble. So that comment started with that the statement you said, and I followed up with whether it was 10,000 votes that were stolen or misappropriated, or it's 10 million. It needs to be investigated, and people need to go to jail if it's purposeful. So I also believe that it needs to be easy to vote and impossible to cheat, and that's been said many times after that. But so for some reason, that paper didn't even record anything I said after that the first part of the statement that you just said, right? But that's what in politics, I guess, I have to learn on how to communicate. But I'm a very transparent person. I admit that I know things that I know, and I definitely admit more often when I don't have the tens of thousands of hours to be the expert in anything. And I don't claim and will never claim that I'm an expert enough to understand how many votes were stolen. But if it was 1, 2, or 10,000, boy, that should be investigated thoroughly. And the future should bring a system where, again, it should be very easy to vote for anybody and impossible to cheat.
One critical reason why I ask is because former President Trump still is repeating those claims that the election result was stolen from him. There are even some elected members of Congress in the Republican Party echoing some of those same thoughts. I want to ask you for your assessment of any evidence that you've seen today as you try to win a Republican primary. Where do you draw the line? Have you seen any evidence of election fraud in 2020?
I don't. I'm on from that. I'm running my race to win. There's experts that are on top of that right now, some of which I respect. And you know what? I'll tell you right now, I'm not focused on that. I've got to be focused on winning this race. I am focused on as we get better information in the coming months to learn everything about it. But it's not going to be my expertise that brings that to the forefront.
I hear you. I think some Republican candidates running for governor expected Governor Pritzker to run from his record of restrictions during the coronavirus, but he's running on it. If you saw his campaign launch, that's the core message, the central theme. He's seen many of the poll numbers. He's seen how most people in Illinois felt about those tough times during the pandemic, but he's betting that voters in the end will value that cautious approach. How confident are you that it's a winning message to attack those pandemic restrictions, those decisions?
I think he's betting on the fact that the bailouts and the bailouts individually and for businesses small and large is going to make everybody forget about the environment, the lack of freedom that he put us all in. I think he believes that he's going to put small business and these restaurant owners and bars in a mentality where they might forget with the checks that'll be delivered, that have been delivered and will be delivered to individuals and businesses over the coming months. I'm hoping that people don't have that short of a memory. What
would Illinois have looked like had Gary Rabine been governor in 2020?
So, Mark, I collaborate with the best minds I can find in the world, everything I do. So, I mean, in my businesses, we've been blessed to be successful. Every time when we find the best minds to solve the problems we need to solve for our customers, and it's creating raving fans, people that love doing business with our companies, right? And I believe that in serving taxpayers of Illinois, we need to expect them to want to stay here. I'm getting over and over again people that say the city and the state don't want us here anymore. Okay, and so many people feel that way. So I believe it's got to be a state and leadership in the state and city that really serve the customers. We're not getting that right now. So a Rabine-led governorship would be one that first collaborates with the best minds in the country and the world, not picking out only people that think like me. Looking at all sides of the coin to say, okay, what does the science say on this side, on that side? What's the data showing? What's working out? What's the data showing? That didn't happen, in my opinion, at all with this governor.
So let's walk through some of that. Governor Pritzker had some of those best minds come to him, some of the top scientific researchers and medical experts with a study. They put it on his desk in early days of the pandemic, just as we were starting to learn what it was and how it affected humans. And it predicted that 20, 30,000, tens of thousands of people would die in Illinois in the span of just a few months. And Governor Pritzker would later tell us that was the number we saw, 25,000 people over more than a year. But they were predicting if there were no restrictions on capacity limits in public, that there would be astronomical death across Illinois, much higher than what it ended up being. What would you do with that information?
Well, I mean, I would definitely look at all that information and have experts that I trust to be on my team to be able to break that down and look at the data. Not only that information initially, but as things progress, understand how to pivot. When you figure out that somebody that opened up next to us, they opened up their businesses and they're going back to school. Hey, things are working out. Kids aren't dying in schools. Kids aren't getting sick in schools. Maybe we got to get back to school too. Those states around us and across the country that opened up businesses. Boy, you know what? The data was showing that there was maybe a little spike initially, but in the long run, if you watch the data, those states had better results than we did in many cases. So again, if we can save the economy and not ruin it, and also look at look at every safety precaution possible to educate our taxpayers, our citizens of Illinois, that's got to be the goal. And to do that, we need to collaborate with states across the country. I don't care if they're right, left, center, doesn't matter. And I know, in my opinion, from what I watched, he didn't do that. I've talked to many governors across the country. Never heard from anybody from our state when they made better decisions than we did. So collaboration is the key, and I don't think that happened as well as it could have.
I hear what you're saying. I want to add some context. There was a Midwest coalition of 7 governors, Republicans and Democrats, all of them here. Missouri was a holdout, but many of the others were all having regular meetings. And all 50 governors were invited to speak with the Trump White House during the pandemic and Vice President Pence. So that collaboration, sharing of ideas was happening, although there were some disagreements between governors on how to handle that. All right, that was then. This is now. You mentioned safety and best practices moving forward. What would you tell people today who are still holding out, who have not been vaccinated?
Yeah, I'm telling them it's a free country, and if they feel that their health and that of their family and their community requires vaccination, it's a free country. Go get it. If they feel that it's not a benefit to them, and vaccinating with a vaccination that's not FDA approved, that if it was FDA approved would have been taken off the shelf about 5,000 or 6,000 deaths ago. All right. If they feel that that's not in their safety and that it's not good for their health, then it's a free country. They should not have to take it. I look at mandating of this vaccine But these vaccines that are not FDA approved is crazy. I think that, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer by any stretch. I've taken many vaccines and I will continue to in my life. But for anybody to think that they must take it to get a diploma, they must take it to go to work. I think it's not in the best interest, in my opinion, of health when this is not an FDA approved. None of these are FDA approved vaccines.
I want to be clear for our viewers who are watching this. The FDA has given emergency use authorization because of that rigorous process to get FDA approval. There are several steps to go through. They cleared it for emergency use, and public health experts like Dr. Fauci have predicted, I believe even the former FDA commissioner have predicted that given that many millions of Americans have had the vaccine and their effectiveness, they expect that the FDA will give that full authorization. There are just a few steps that they don't want to rush through. Some might call it red tape, but they want to make sure they're doing that process of the full authorization right. So there has been emergency use authorization. It strikes me, though, that at this moment, when there are still people holding out, that seems to be, I mean, of all the people getting sick and dying of coronavirus today, 97, 98% of them, sometimes in some places it's 99%, were unvaccinated. Aren't those preventable deaths?
Yeah, I can't tell you if they are. All I can tell you is the data I'm getting shows that there's been, I mean, anywhere from 5,900 deaths attributed to this to 8,000, right? What the real number is, I don't know, but it's a heck of a lot more than the 25.
I don't know what you're referring to. Attributed to those deaths attributed to what?
To getting the vaccine. No,
people who have died after the vaccine. I don't think there's a direct cause or link. Are you suggesting that the vaccine is killing people?
I'm suggesting that after taking the vaccine, within a short period of time, people died for no other reason that they could say, right? So again, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's a hell of a lot more than 25 to 50 deaths that would it require to take it off the shelf if it's finally FDA approved. 25 to 50 in the past, 25 to 50 deaths have taken that vaccine off the shelf. Okay, it's evident that it's hundreds, tens of times more than that, or 100 times more than that.
So a study came out just this week that said that there are more than 200,000 people who are alive today who would have died if they didn't have the vaccine. That study just came out in the last 7 days. You're telling me that you're not anti-vax, but you're pointing to conspiracies about people dying with the vaccine and saying you wouldn't mandate it. I don't hear anything in your message about encouraging people to get the vaccine.
You know what? My father's taken it. Many of my relatives have taken it, and I support them 100%. Right? If they feel that they should take it because their age, their health, or just because they want to, that's up to them 100%. I'm just one that doesn't believe that the mandate should be in place for everybody to take a vaccine. That's still in emergency use stage.
To be clear, no state in the country is mandating that anyone takes a vaccine. The policy that you're describing is not one that's in place. There is no mandate to have a vaccine. There are private enterprises that are saying if you want to work here, you have to get the vaccine. That's legal. But I don't, isn't there room between requiring people and encouraging people to get a vaccine? Can't you do at least one of those?
I don't think that business should be allowed to do that. I don't think that education system should be allowed to do that. I feel that that's against the rights of that person to lose their job because they won't take a vaccine. That's a mandate. Doesn't have to be backed by the state. It's wrong in any private environment, in my opinion. Right, to be demanded to take a vaccine, somebody that's in a role of a job that they've been in for 30 years, right? For them to say, take the vaccine or you lose your job, your 30-year career, in my opinion, is wrong.
All right, you've made your position clear. I want to move on to a different topic. Illinois saw two credit upgrades, the first two credit upgrades in more than 20 years in Illinois in recent months. Our bill backlog, the pile of unpaid bills in Illinois, is down to roughly $4 billion from its peak at 16.6 during the later months of the Rauner administration. Are Illinois' finances better or worse today than they were in January of 2019?
They're definitely better because of the bailouts, right? Would they be better without the bailouts?
Well, the bill backlog is a lot farther, was already trending lower and was going down before any money came from Congress in the American Rescue Plan or in the CARES Act. Certainly, the money that was borrowed and then paid back through some of those did go toward paying down old bills, but what would you have spent that money on?
Yeah. So what is this? Are we in a better position than any other state in the country financially right now? Because what I'm looking at shows that we're still at the bottom of the barrel. Is that the case, or in your opinion, or not?
You're asking my opinion. I'm offering facts. I'm saying, is Illinois in a better position financially today than it was in 2019?
I mean, I would say that we're better because of the bailouts. Is that better that we're dependent on the federal government? I don't think that we are, actually, in my opinion. If we need federal bailouts to be in a better position, we're not on the right course.
All right, you're in construction, in asphalt and paving and all that. Would you have voted for, signed the 2019 capital infrastructure bill?
I would. I believe capital infrastructure is a big issue and a focus we have to have. So the answer is yes, in the right terms, right? If everything is in that I and the team agree on, yeah. I mean, is everything in there for infrastructure improvement? I don't think that's the case. But if it was, and there wasn't a lot of special interest stuff in there, pork stuff in there, I would say for sure. If it's focused on capital infrastructure, boy, we need it in a big way.
Including doubling the gas tax from 19 to 38 cents. Keep in mind that money goes into that lockbox, which has to be used on transportation projects.
Yeah, no, I don't agree that we should have the third highest gas tax in the country. Spend.
So you wouldn't have signed the bill?
The gas tax bill? No, I wouldn't have. No.
To be clear, that was the capital infrastructure bill that included the gas tax increase to pay for all of those projects. If not that method, how do you pay for all of the roads and bridges upgrades that were included in that?
In my opinion, we have to search for other ways to tighten the belt in the state, because we can't tax our citizens out of our state and think there's ever going to be enough people to pay the bills in the future.
All right, interesting. You've said you want to crush property taxes. I think every politician running for statewide office in Illinois hits on that issue. The single biggest driver of property taxes for decades in Illinois has been the state shortchanging school districts. It's the cost of education at the local level. Local school districts have had to raise property taxes because for years Illinois was underfunding from the state level at worst levels in the entire nation. That changed in 2017, 2018, when Illinois started kicking in a little bit more and a little bit more in education every year. But at the same time, I noticed on your Facebook page you're suggesting that Illinois spends too much on education, if I read that correctly. How do you do both? How do you lower property taxes and lower, if I read you correctly, what the state spends on education?
Yeah, so spending doesn't always result in success. The more spending doesn't mean we have more success in many cases. If you look at our schools, I think we're at the top, one or two highest per student cost in raising a kid in our public schools today. And our results are not we're not the top of the heap, right? We're at the bottom. So to think that we just spend more and that solves our problems, I think is a misconception. Other states have, and I agree with you 100%, Mark. I mean, right now it's all the burden of almost all of it's the burden of the local community, right, to pay for schooling. Other states have done this before, as you probably know, and been successful reducing their property taxes and reshuffling the deck on where the taxes are derived from. But again, we've got to find the experts, the best minds in the country that have been there, done before, and hopefully learn from them first and use some of the initiatives that they've executed in their states.
The last two candidates to run for governor and win in this state were both businessmen. Both had not held elected office before, but they also both ran on the promise of raising the state level of funding for education in school districts. Are you also making that same commitment? Is that a campaign pledge of yours to raise the state's level of funding on education?
That might be the answer. I can't tell you that is the silver bullet, but that might be the answer.
All right, very interesting.
One of the answers, I should say. I mean, if you look at Indiana, who did this 2009. You look at California, who did this in the late 70s. They did it by a mixed bag of tightening the belt and shifting more to the state. So I mean, I guess I can't answer that question right now because there's a lot of work to be done before we can really understand that.
Sure, and the first work that has to be done before any Republican candidate can assume or the challenge of taking on Governor Pritzker, you have to win a primary. Before we let you go, why are you a better candidate for Republicans to back in 2022 than State Senator Darren Bailey or former State Senator Paul Schimpf?
Mark, I felt the pressure of Illinois in all different levels. When it comes to job creation, we're now one of the worst in the country. The pressure that's put on small business today, it doesn't incentivize people to grow and create jobs here as well as it was only 10, 15 years ago. We were the best state in the middle of the country to start a business, even up to 15 years ago. The best business to grow a business or to go find a job. And today we're not. We're at the bottom of the barrel again in that, and all aspects of that. So for me, I understand job creation. I understand what it takes for small businesses to flourish. We need that in Illinois. When it comes to taxation, I've watched our taxes go from being, again, competitive 15 years ago in almost all aspects to being the highest in the country cumulatively, as well as highest, or let's say second in the highest at least, on property taxes. Okay, then I've also, that's not acceptable. And then I've watched our state culturally go to a point where we don't seem to care about public safety as much as other places do, and as much as we should, to protect our families. So when we look at the aspects of job creation, taxation, and nurturing good family culture, I'm the guy that understands that well. I've grown my family here. I've built many businesses, and the businesses I build because we know how to groom and find leaders that can lead. Leaders that take responsibility for the mistakes, or let's say the short-term failures, and then give credit to those that around them that are successful when they succeed. I'm not seeing that in politics. I know that that's who I am. I can build leaders, and I'll do that as we take the state on and do great things for it.
All right, Gary Rabine, we look forward to covering the campaign as the different candidates emerge. Perhaps more still yet to join the race. The primary set for June of next year instead of March. It's been pushed back about 15 weeks or so. Gary Rabine joining us on his first appearance here on Capital Connection. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your time.
All right, we're back in just a moment.